Chapter 1361. Lu Ming was confident that he could win if there were only one of them. However, if there were 2 or 3 of them, Lu Ming would barely be able to maintain a draw. However, if there were 9 of them, Lu Ming could only flee in defeat. Could it be that even he couldn't pass it? Or would he have to wait until he reached the Supreme Being level before he could pass it? A few thoughts flashed in Lu Ming's mind. After a few more moves, Lu Ming rose and tore the blood-colored 9 dragons apart. Unexpectedly, after the blood-colored 9 dragons were torn apart, Lu Ming continued to move forward, but no other blood-colored 9 dragons appeared. After moving forward for a while, a huge underground cave appeared in front of him. As soon as Lu Ming walked in, he heard a series of dragon roars. However, he could only hear the dragon roars but not the dragon's body. That is, Lu Ming's gaze was fixed on the sky above the cave. He was completely captivated. In the sky above the underground cave, there were 7 sparkling blood-red beads floating. Each bead seemed to be made of blood-red jade, shining brilliantly and emitting a shocking fluctuation. Blood essence, the blood essence of the 9 dragons. Lu Ming's eyes lit up, and his heart thumped. He finally found the blood essence of the 9 dragons. The remaining 7 drops of blood essence of the 9 dragons. Roar! As if sensing something, Lu Ming's spine heated up, and the blood of the 9 dragons flew out on its own, opening its mouth and roaring. Buzz! Buzz! The 7 drops of blood essence of the 9 dragons also vibrated. Each drop was suffused with blood-red light, and a small 9 dragons flew out, resonating with the blood of the 9 dragons. Refine it for me. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. He controlled the blood of the 9 dragons, and swallowed 1 drop of blood essence. Boom! As soon as the drop of blood essence entered the blood of the 9 dragons, it directly exploded, turning into endless energy and fusing with the blood of the 9 dragons. Lu Ming sat cross-legged. After refining 1 drop, he continued to refine it. Every time he refined another drop, a piece of information would appear in Lu Ming's mind. It was the memory fragments of the 9 dragons. Of course, Lu Ming's cultivation base didn't increase. The energy in his blood essence was completely absorbed into the 9 dragons' bloodline, as if it were being stored away. It made the 9 dragons' bloodline more and more corporeal, almost like the real 9 dragons. It took a total of 7 days for the 7 drops of blood essence of the 9 dragons to completely merge with the bloodline of the 9 dragons. At this moment, a lot of information appeared in Lu Ming's mind. They were all fragments of the 9 dragons' memories. These fragments slowly overlapped and formed a complete set of information. True Dragon Battle Secrets Extraordinary Chapter, Dragon God Battle Body. A smile appeared on Lu Ming's face. Previously, the true battle dragon art he had practiced was the Foundation chapter. The main content of the Foundation Establishment chapter was for those before the Martial Monarch realm. After the Martial Monarch realm, the Foundation Establishment chapter would be useless. Now he finally got it. As the name suggested, the Dragon God's battle body was mainly used for the cultivation of the spirit body. The cultivation of the spirit body was originally to infuse one's bloodline into one's physical body. After undergoing the tempering of the lightning tribulation, one would be able to form a higher grade spirit body. In other words, those below the Martial Monarch realm were still essentially mortals. Those above the Martial Monarch realm had already transcended mortals and reached a higher level of existence. The extraordinary chapter was to infuse the 9 dragons' bloodline into one's physical body and cultivate a spirit body. This spirit body was called the Dragon God Battle Body and was extremely powerful. From the 9 dragons' memories, Lu Ming knew that spirit bodies were also divided into different grades. They were divided into ordinary spirit bodies, earth spirit bodies, and heaven spirit bodies. Each grade was further divided into inferior, intermediate, and superior. According to the 9 dragons' memories, in the Divine Wilderness continent, and even the Divine Ruins continent, most of the Martial Monarch's spiritual bodies were inferior ordinary spirit bodies. Very few of them were intermediate ordinary spirit bodies. For example, Xiao Wan's immortal demon body and Xia Zhuyang's 9 Yang divine body should be superior ordinary spirit bodies. As for Di Yi's 10,000 vein spiritual body, If he succeeded, it was very likely to be an inferior Earth spirit body. An inferior Earth spirit body was extremely powerful. It was much more powerful than an ordinary spirit body. Unfortunately, De had spent 10,000 years depriving various powerhouses of their bloodlines and blood essence. Unfortunately, he had not succeeded in cultivating it. It was not perfect, and its power was only equivalent to an superior ordinary spirit body. Therefore, he wanted to seize Lu Ming's 9 dragons' blood essence to cultivate the 10,000 veins spiritual body. If he succeeded in cultivating it, he would be invincible among martial monarchs of the same level. It would be easy for him to kill martial monarchs of the same level. It would be normal for him to fight someone of a higher level. If Lu Ming succeeded in cultivating the Dragon God battle body and became a martial monarch, he would be an inferior Earth spirit body. The most important point was that the Dragon God battle body could be upgraded. Just like his previous bloodline, it could be upgraded continuously. This made Lu Ming very excited. Another thing that made Lu Ming excited was that if he cultivated the spirit body with the 9 dragons bloodline, he might be able to retain the 9 dragons devouring skill after transforming into the Dragon God battle body. In the past, Lu Ming had been struggling with which bloodline to cultivate the spirit body with when he broke through to the martial monarch realm. The prison suppressing steel bloodline seemed to be stronger than the 9 dragons bloodline. As for the third bloodline, it was even more mysterious. But now, Lu Ming had made a decision. He planned to use the 9 dragons bloodline to cultivate the spirit body. As for the prison-suppressing steel bloodline and the third bloodline, he could keep them. He felt that even after he broke through to the martial monarch realm, these 2 bloodlines would still be of great use to him. Then Lu Ming looked at other memories. There's a lot less. After a while, Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Originally, he thought that after fusing with the 9 dragons' blood essence, he would be able to obtain their complete memories. But now, he realized that most of the memories were blank. For example, where were the 9 dragons from? What happened back then? With the 9 dragons' combat strength, why did they fall? Who killed the 9 dragons? What happened in the heaven realm? These important memories were completely blank. Could it be that the 9 dragons did it on purpose before they died? Lu Ming guessed. However, although these memories were gone, the other memories were still priceless. In his memories, there were some powerful combat skills with terrifying power. They could only be cultivated after breaking through to the martial monarch realm, or even higher realms. Every single one of them was a priceless treasure in the outside world. At the same time, through the 9 dragons' memories, Lu Ming finally knew the cultivation realms after that. After the martial monarch realm was the martial saint realm. The martial saint realm was also known as the saint realm, or the saint realm. The lifespan of a martial saint could reach more than 100,000 years. They could roam the world with unparalleled combat strength. Compared to them, martial monarchs were worlds apart. However, the martial saint realm was not the highest realm. It was not the peak. Above the martial saint realm was the peak, the martial emperor realm. The martial emperor realm was also known as the Great Emperor. This was the peak powerhouse of the world. Their lifespan was almost endless, and they stood at the peak of the world. They were unbelievably powerful. With a wave of their hand, they could probably destroy a continent like the divine wilderness. This world did not only refer to the primordial realm, but also the heaven realm. The martial emperor realm was the peak powerhouse. Back then, the 9 dragons were in this realm. The top 10 war beasts were all in this realm. Martial Emperor Realm, the Great Emperor. Lu Ming's eyes revealed a look of yearning. His goal was to stand at the peak of the world. He must reach the Martial Emperor Realm in the future. Chapter 1362. Lu Ming closed his eyes and quietly digested part of the 9 dragons' memories. This part of the memories was very precious, including the knowledge of many natural treasures. Most importantly, it contained the 9 dragons' cultivation experience. Jiu was a peak martial emperor expert. How valuable was his cultivation experience? Lu Ming slowly digested it. In the blink of an eye, another half a month passed. Lu Ming opened his eyes. There was a trace of seriousness in his eyes. The 9 dragons' memories also contained information about the chaotic intent. In the 9 dragons' memories, the chaotic intent was the emperor of all intents in the world. Its power was amazing, but it was also very difficult to cultivate. Especially when breaking through, it was very difficult to transform the intent into the embryonic form of a domain. Lu Ming had long known about this. When he used the domain condensing pill, it had almost no effect. Ordinary martial artists, even if they did not have the domain condensing pill, they could slowly dissolve the intent runes and integrate it into their spiritual spirit. 1 or 2 years would be enough. However, the chaotic intent was 100 times more difficult to cultivate than ordinary intents. In other words, if Lu Ming cultivated step by step, it would take at least 100 years to cultivate the embryonic form of a domain and step into the prime level. 100 years was too long. For Lu Ming, it was too long. No, these 100 years are the golden years for me to cultivate. If I spend 100 years cultivating the will of primal chaos, it will be the same as wiping out my potential. Not only will the other geniuses leave me far behind, but my potential will also be exhausted, and my future achievements will be limited. Lu Ming thought in his heart. After a while, Lu Ming gritted his teeth, and a trace of ruthlessness appeared in his eyes. Fight! Fight! According to the 9 dragons cultivation experience, Lu Ming found a method. This method could allow Lu Ming to condense the embryonic form of a domain in a short time. However, there was a great risk. If he was not careful, his cultivation would regress, and it would be difficult for him to improve. In the worst case, his body and soul would be destroyed. However, Lu Ming still decided to fight. Any pinnacle expert would have to go through countless trials and tribulations. No one had ever heard of anyone being able to reach the pinnacle without any problems. Fight! Lu Ming made his decision. Moreover, it was right here. Other than him, there shouldn't be anyone else who could reach this place. It was the best place to enter seclusion and make a breakthrough. After closing his eyes for half a day, Lu Ming's mind fell into a state of emptiness as he adjusted himself to his best state. Roar! Next, the 9 dragons' bloodline emerged, and with a loud roar, it rushed into Lu Ming's forehead and appeared in Lu Ming's knowledge sea. Somewhere in Lu Ming's spiritual sea, a concept rune floated, suffused with a chaotic radiance. It was Lu Ming's primal chaos rune. Suddenly, the 9 dragons' bloodlines appeared near the runes of the concept of primal chaos. Roar! Suddenly, the 9 dragons' bloodline roared and pounced at the concept of primal chaos rune. A dragon claw heavily clawed at the rune. Boom! The concept runes emitted loud rumbling noises. Lu Ming felt as if the entire world was being turned upside down. A tearing pain spread out from his mind. It took him quite a while to recover. Again, Lu Ming roared, and the 9 dragons continued to claw at the concept of primal chaos rune. Yes, this was Lu Ming's method. He used a barbaric method to blast open the concept of primal chaos rune, and then used a barbaric method to merge it into his spiritual soul. This method was absolutely crazy. If others knew about it, they would be scared to death. But without a doubt, it was the most effective and time-saving method. Boom! 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 In Xiao Chen's knowledge sea, the 9 dragons attacked the concept of primal chaos rune continuously. At first, the 9 dragons only used 1 dragon claw. Slowly, the number of dragon claws increased to 2, then 3. 10 days later, the 9 dragon claws moved together, continuously bombarding the concept of primal chaos rune. The concept of primal chaos rune shook violently. Kacha! At some unknown time, the concept of primal chaos rune gave off a cracking sound, and a crack appeared on it. Puff! At this moment, Lu Ming's body shook violently, and he vomited large mouthfuls of blood. However, there was no panic in Lu Ming's eyes. Instead, he revealed joy. Continue. The 9 dragons continued to bombard the concept of primal chaos rune. As time passed, more and more cracks appeared on the concept of primal chaos rune. Another 10 days passed. Suddenly bang! The concept of primal chaos rune exploded. Lu Ming spurted blood from his mouth, and a crack appeared between Lu Ming's eyebrows, and blood flowed out. But Lu Ming couldn't care less. Merge for me. Lu Ming roared, and a strong attractive force came from the spiritual soul in his dantian, attracting the fragments of the concept of primal chaos, rune into the spiritual soul. Whoosh whoosh! All the fragments of the concept of primal chaos flew into the spiritual soul. At this moment, the spiritual soul swelled and emitted thousands of rays of light, almost exploding. This step was the most dangerous. If he was not careful, the spiritual soul would explode, his physical body would collapse, and his body and spirit would be destroyed. Suppress! With a thought, the prison-suppressing steel bloodline appeared in his dantian, suspended above the spiritual soul, and suppressed it. At the same time, the third bloodline appeared above Lu Ming's physical body. Waves of power shrouded Lu Ming's entire body. This was the complete plan. Lu Ming combined the cultivation experience of the 9 dragons root with his own conditions to set up a complete plan. With the help of his 3 bloodlines, he completed this step. The spiritual soul, which was on the verge of collapse, was finally suppressed and merged with the concept of primal chaos fragments, forming the embryonic form of a domain. Lu Ming closed his eyes and focused on cultivation. Time passed day by day. Endless distance away from the divine wilderness continent, in a secret place in the Bayou continent, there was a messy stone forest. In the stone forest, there was an old stone platform. De stood beside the stone platform, waiting anxiously. Buzz! Suddenly, the stone platform emitted a light, and then the light became brighter and brighter. Finally, a vortex formed on the stone platform. Suddenly, figures appeared from the black vortex. 1, 2. And finally a total of 10 figures appeared and flew out of the vortex. As soon as the 10 figures flew out, the vortex on the stone platform disappeared. As soon as he saw the 10 people, De's face immediately showed respect. The leader of the 10 people was dressed in luxurious clothes. His eyes were long and narrow, and when he opened and closed them, there was a flash of sharpness. Behind the young man, there were 9 people, including elders and burly men. Each of them had a powerful aura, and gave people a feeling of extreme danger. De of the D family's side branch greets young Master De Xian. De hurriedly bowed to the young man. You are De. The young man glanced at De with faint disdain. I am De. De hurriedly said. Humph De, you are really useless. You can't even take down the divine wilderness continent. De Xian scolded coldly. Chapter 1363. De. Your goal was originally the continent group of divine ruins. According to the mission given to you by the family, if you could unify the continent group of divine ruins on your own, you could return to the D family and become a direct descendant of the D family. Unfortunately, it seems that you have no hope. De Xian sneered. De lowered his head even more, his eyes flashing with raging anger. It was all Lu Ming's fault. It was all because of that Lu Ming who had ruined his plan. The D family came from the Yuanlu, and was a powerful force in the Yuanlu. De was a collateral disciple of the D family, and had a low status. However, there was a rule in the D family. If a collateral disciple wanted to become a direct descendant, and obtain the cultivation conditions and resources of the direct descendant, he had to complete a mission given by the D family. The mission that De received was to unify the continent of godly ruins on his own. This mission was not considered difficult among the missions given by the D family. However, De's talent was limited. He had come to the continent of godly ruins 10,000 years ago. However, he had just broken through to the martial emperor realm. Therefore, he chose the divine wilderness continent, which was not very powerful, to build the D Tian divine palace and start his plan. At the same time, he strengthened his cultivation and cultivated the 10,000 veins spiritual body. Now his plan was slowly maturing. His cultivation had reached the peak of LV2 martial emperor realm. He had obtained the 10,000 veins spiritual body by chance, and was only one step away from reaching the complete realm. He was confident that he would be able to reach the complete realm once he obtained another drop of the 9 dragons' blood essence. At that time, he would break through to LV3 martial emperor realm with the help of the 10,000 veins spiritual body. At that time, it would be easy for him to unify the continent of godly ruins. If he spent some time to break through to LV4 Martial Emperor realm, it would not be a problem for him to unify the continent of godly ruins. At that time, he would be able to return to the D family and become a direct descendant. His status would be greatly improved, and he would be supported by various resources. Not only would his cultivation improve by leaps and bounds, his status in the D family would also be different. Unfortunately, everything was ruined by Lu Ming. He had been unable to obtain Lu Ming's 9 dragon blood essence, which was why he had rashly launched a war. He wanted to first unify the divine wilderness continent and borrow its power to help him cultivate the 10,000 veins spirit body. But in the end, everything was destroyed by Lu Ming. Even the 10,000 veins spiritual body that he had cultivated for 10,000 years was destroyed. He had no hope at all. It was all Lu Ming's fault. Thinking of Lu Ming, Di Yi's eyes turned red. Moreover, I even sent Di Hongqing and Di Honglei to help you. Where are they now? Do you know how much it costs to teleport from the Yuan continent to a desolate island, like the Godly Ruins continent? Di Xian shouted again. According to him, the group of continents in the Divine Ruins had become barren islands. Di Hongqing and the others are dead. Di stammered. What? Where are the 2 sovereign spirit weapons? Di Xian's eyes widened, and a cold murderous intent spread out. Di Yi's heart trembled. Di Xian was the true descendant of the Di family, and his status was much higher than his. If he was angry, not only him, but also his branch in the Di family would be in danger. Lord Xian, please calm down. It's all Lu Ming's fault. If it wasn't for Lu Ming, it wouldn't take long for me to unify the Divine Ruins continent. Di Yi hurriedly apologized. Lu Ming. Di Xian widened his eyes. Yes, Lu Ming. Immediately, Di Yi briefly recounted the previous battle in Lu Ming's matter. You mean his cultivation hasn't reached the sovereign spirit realm? I didn't expect that there would be such a genius on the barbaric Emperor Island. He must have some secrets. Hee, take him down and I'll study him. Di Xian's eyes flashed with a cold light. Let's go. Di Yi, lead the way. We'll go to the Divine Wilderness continent and meet that Lu Ming. Di Xian ordered. Yes. Di Yi nodded repeatedly and led the way. His face was ferocious. In the 9 Dragons relic, Lu Ming was still cultivating. As the days passed, the spiritual spirit in Lu Ming's dantian also slowly calmed down. There was a faint light shining, as if it was nurturing something. One day, the spiritual spirit suddenly shook, and a chaotic light shone out. It's done. Lu Ming's eyes flashed with ecstasy. At the same time, Lu Ming put away the prison-suppressing steel bloodline and the 3rd bloodline. After such a long time, Lu Ming felt that the embryonic form of the chaotic domain had finally been successfully formed. With a wave of his hand, piles of origin stones appeared around Lu Ming. The 9 Dragons bloodline appeared and opened its mouth. The piles of origin stones were swallowed by the 9 Dragons bloodline and began to refine them. The energy of the origin stones was constantly converted into true essence and integrated into the spiritual spirit. The chaotic light in the spiritual spirit became more and more obvious. After a few more days, Lu Ming had swallowed 300 million origin stones. The aura on Lu Ming's body became stronger and stronger, and his true essence became more and more abundant. At a certain moment, buzz! A circle of light spread out from the spiritual spirit, and it grew bigger and bigger. From Lu Ming's body, it covered an area of 100 meters. The domain, the embryonic form of the domain, had finally been completely formed. This was the embryonic form of the chaotic domain. Right now, it was only an embryonic form, and there was still a long way to go before it could be a real domain. Later, Lu Ming would need to continue to comprehend and nurture it. Slowly, the embryonic form of the domain would grow and mature. When he broke through to the Emperor realm in the future, it would naturally become a complete domain. With a thought, the embryonic form of the domain shrank and covered the surface of Lu Ming's body. Boom! Lu Ming casually threw a punch, and the space collapsed, and a black space cave appeared. What a powerful force! Lu Ming felt that the power of the embryonic form of the chaotic domain was much stronger than the pure chaotic will. Is this the power of a 9 Heavens Supreme? Lu Ming felt the powerful force in his body and wore a confident smile. After forming the embryonic form of the domain, Lu Ming had naturally reached the Nine Heavens' supreme realm. His current strength was at least a few times stronger than before. He was confident that he could easily kill a second-layer martial dominator realm expert with a martial dominator weapon without the help of his second body, such as Di Hongcheng. There's less than a month left until the alliance establishment ceremony. It's time to go back. Having this thought, Lu Ming immediately made his way back. There were no obstacles on the way back. Lu Ming easily left the Nine Dragons' ancient ruins and tore the space apart. Soon, he had returned to the northern valley. Meanwhile, the construction of the Dragon Emperor city had been completed. The first thing Lu Ming did after returning to the northern valley was to order the people to move to the Dragon Emperor city. The Dragon Emperor city was magnificent and spacious. Many people could live there. Furthermore, the Dragon Emperor city had great cultivation conditions. Thus many people were eager to move to the Dragon Emperor city. Chapter 1364. The Great Relocation had begun. The Lu family that Lu Ming was from, as well as Hua Qi and the rest, naturally moved to the Dragon Emperor city. Moreover, the land that they were given was the core of the city. The cultivation environment was also the best. Dragon Emperor city began to bustle. In just half a month, millions of people had been transferred to Dragon Emperor city through the trans-territory teleportation formation. However, considering the vast territory of Dragon Emperor city, millions of people were just a small part of the territory. Later on, more and more people would move in. After moving to Dragon Emperor city, many people began to get busy preparing for the alliance establishment ceremony. The experts of the entire Divine Wilderness continent began to gather in Dragon Emperor city. On this day, DE and the others also entered the Divine Wilderness continent. As soon as they entered, they heard that the alliance establishment ceremony would be held in Dragon Emperor city in a few days. Haha, that's good. Let's kill Lu Ming at the so-called alliance establishment ceremony. Di Xian sneered. Young Master Di Xian, Lu Ming can control the Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron and has endless power. We have to be careful. Di said. Lu Ming's control of the Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron was too powerful and shocking. Even a third-level martial emperor expert would have to avoid it. Well, let's go to Nine Dragon City first and seal the Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron so that Lu Ming can't use it. Di Xian said. They tore the space apart and headed for Nine Dragon City. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. The alliance establishment ceremony had officially begun. At the end of the Divine Dragon Passage in Dragon Emperor City, experts gathered in the square paved with white jade. Except for the Western Desert, all the emperors had arrived. There were hundreds of supreme beings, as well as tens of thousands of sect masters and sect masters of various forces. They took their seats on both sides of the square. These people were all people who stood at the pinnacle of the Divine Wilderness continent. They were important figures who stood at the peak. Today they were all gathered here. Outside the square, there was an even more spacious place filled with banquets. At least 1 million people had gathered here. Not only that, all the forces in the Divine Wilderness continent began to celebrate. Today the world celebrated together. Vice Alliance leader has arrived. A voice came from the sky and spread across the entire Dragon Emperor city. Xiao Wan and the old army chief, one on the left and one on the right, stepped through the air and landed on the two sides of the plaza. Greetings, Vice Alliance leaders. Everyone stood up and saluted the two vice leaders. Rise! Please rise! Xiao Wan and the old general raised their hands. After that, Xiao Wan and the old general looked at the depth of Dragon Emperor city. The alliance master has arrived. The voice from before appeared once again. Whoosh! 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 All the people fixed their eyes on the deep part of Dragon Emperor city. A few figures were approaching from deep within the Dragon Emperor city. Lu Ming, Xian Yinqing, and Lu Ming's parents, Lu Yintian and Li Ping. Today Lu Ming had specially changed his clothes. He was wearing a purple gold robe with a majestic and lifelike 9-clawed dragon embroidered on it. His long hair was tied up high, and he wore a purple gold crown. He He wore golden dragon boots and a golden jade belt around his waist. A powerful oppressive aura was emitted from his body. The four of them landed at the top of the plaza. Greetings, Alliance Leader. At the scene inside and outside the square, millions of powerhouses bowed to Lu Ming. The sound waves gathered and scattered the clouds in the sky. Rise, please take a seat. Lu Ming waved his hand, and his voice spread far and wide. Thank you, Alliance Leader. Millions of people began to take their seats. Today, we are mainly celebrating the establishment of the Dragon Alliance. Then we will divide the territories. Lu Ming said. He didn't say much, but many people's hearts raced. The Dragon Alliance had unified the world, including the Northern Plains, Eastern Wilderness, Southern Underworld, and Central Continent. How to divide the territories, and who to send to guard them was a question that everyone was concerned about. After all, there were huge benefits involved in this matter. Let's begin, Lu Ming announced. The first step was for many forces to step forward and swear a blood oath to form the Dragon Alliance to rule the Divine Wilderness. Ha ha ha, it seems that I came at the right time today. At this moment, a burst of laughter came from afar. A golden light flashed, and a figure appeared in the sky. That's Di. It's Di. Many people shouted. Some people even had looks of fear on their faces. Martial monarch Di had occupied almost half of the divine desolate continent back then. His might was too great. Many large and small factions had been ruled by Di. Now that Di had appeared, those people naturally panicked. Di, you still dare to come here? That's great. Today, we will use your blood as a sacrifice to the flag. Xiao Wan shouted, and a demonic chi soared into the sky. Lu Ming didn't say anything. Confusion flashed in his eyes. He could clearly see Di's current realm. He was only at the peak of LV1 Martial Emperor realm. In the last battle, Di had injured his origin, and his cultivation had regressed by 1 level. With such a cultivation level, any one of them could easily kill Di, let alone Lu Ming, Xiao Wan, the old general, and Tu Qian. Why did Di still dare to come here? Di, let the others come out together, Lu Ming said, and looked behind Di. Ha ha ha, if you let me show up, it will be your death. A burst of laughter came, and the space cracked. A total of 10 figures appeared in the sky and looked down at the Imperial Dragon City from above. Who are these people? I've never seen them before. Many people were discussing. You are Lu Ming? Di Xian looked at Lu Ming. That's right, Lu Ming said. Good, very good. I've heard that you've killed 2 experts from my Di family, Di Hongqing and Di Honglei. You've even taken away their emperor-level spiritual weapons. Now come over here and hand over your emperor-level spiritual weapons. Kneel down and beg me to spare your life. Perhaps, I'll consider sparing your life. Di Xian put his hands behind his back and looked down at Lu Ming with a superior look. How dare you disrespect the Alliance Leader? You deserve to die. A loud shout came from the square. A tall figure shot up into the sky, and a vast aura filled the square. This was an emperor. He used to be the emperor of an overlord force in the Central Continent. His name was Sky King, and he had surrendered to Lu Ming. Therefore, he was the lowest-ranked emperor in the Dragon Alliance. He had been looking for an opportunity to show off in front of Lu Ming and win Lu Ming's trust. Now that he had such a good opportunity, he had to seize it. Boom! Kongtian Martial Emperor threw a palm strike at Di Xian. How dare you disrespect young Master Di Xian? Die! A middle-aged man walked out from behind Di Xian. He held a sword with both hands and slashed. A terrifying sword chi appeared above the Sky Emperor's head in a flash, and broke through his attack and defense. Then it slashed down. Chapter 1365. He had killed an emperor with a single slash. Most of the people at the scene widened their eyes in shock. Peak 2nd Layer Martial Royal Realm. He's a peak 2nd Layer Martial Royal Realm expert. One of the emperors said solemnly. The middle-aged man who walked out from behind Di Xian was a peak 2nd Layer Martial Royal Realm expert. Bang! 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 Xiao Wan, the old general, and the others unleashed their auras. All the emperors of the Dragon Alliance gathered their auras and pressed down on Di Xian and the others. Cold murderous intent burst out from their bodies. How dare you kill people in Dragon Emperor City? You'll all die today. The old general said coldly. I don't care who you are. You'll have to pay the price today. Xiaowan said as a terrifying saber glow flickered on his body. Stay. Price. Ha ha ha, how ridiculous. Let's see how you're going to kill me today. Di Xian burst out laughing and waved his hand. Bang! 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 The remaining people behind Di Xian unleashed their auras. Each of their auras was like a smoke signal soaring into the sky. Each of their auras was vast and boundless, forming a powerful pressure that pressed down on the hearts of the people in Dragon Emperor City. Xiao Wan, the old general, and the others' eyes widened in shock and disbelief. These people's auras were too powerful, including the middle-aged man who had attacked before. There were 6 of them in total. All of them were peak second-layer martial royal realm experts. 2 of them had even more terrifying auras. They were much stronger than peak second-layer martial royal realm experts. Third-layer martial royal realm experts. Third-layer martial royal realm experts. 6 peak second-layer martial royal realm experts. And 2 peak third-layer martial royal realm experts. There was also a silver-haired old man standing behind Di Xian. He did not emit any aura, but he gave off an even more dangerous feeling. The hearts of the people in Dragon Emperor City sank. What kind of enormous power was this? Currently, the strongest cultivators in the Divine Wilderness continent were only peak second-layer martial royal realm experts. Only a few of them were at the peak. None of them were peak third-layer martial royal realm experts. Now there were 6 peak second-layer martial royal realm experts, and 2 peak third-layer martial royal realm experts behind Di Xian. How could they fight against them? Ha ha ha, Lu Ming, aren't you arrogant? Today the experts of my Di clan are here. All of you will die. Di laughed. His eyes were ferocious, and his voice was full of hatred. Today, he wanted Lu Ming to suffer a fate worse than death. Di's voice made many people tremble. Could it be that the Dragon Alliance was going to be destroyed before it was even officially formed? Lu Ming, what do you think? Hurry up and hand over the Sovereign Spirit weapon. Get over here and admit your guilt. Perhaps you can still save your dog life. Di Xian sneered and continued to look down at Lu Ming, as if he was sure that Lu Ming would be defeated. A ruler's spiritual weapon was a weapon that could only be unleashed by a top-grade ruler. Even for Di Xian it was very precious. Those 2 rulers' spiritual weapons were one of the few he had. Of the 9 experts he had brought with him, only 1 or 2 of them possessed an emperor-level spirit weapon. Ming'er, Lu Yintian, and Li Ping looked at Lu Ming worriedly. Father, mother, don't worry. It'll be fine. Lu Ming smiled at Lu Yintian and Li Ping. That smile was full of confidence. Seeing Lu Ming's smile, Lu Yintian and Li Ping somehow calmed down. Then, Lu Ming ignored Di Xian and looked at Di. Di, you escaped last time. You should have hidden well. That way, you might have been able to prolong your life. Instead, you came here to court death. You brought this upon yourself. Many people were stunned when they heard Lu Ming's words. Under such circumstances, Lu Ming still wanted to kill Di? He couldn't even protect himself. Only a few people, such as Xiaowan Xiazhuyang and Yin Guangtu, had their eyes lit up. They knew Lu Ming very well. Lu Ming wouldn't shoot without thinking. Di himself was also stunned. Under such circumstances, Lu Ming still wanted to kill him? Where did Lu Ming get his confidence from? Di Xian's face completely darkened. Lu Ming dared to ignore him? Bang! Bang! Di Xian stepped forward step by step, releasing a powerful aura. Supreme! Di Xian's cultivation was at the Supreme Realm. This also shocked many people in the Imperial Dragon City. Because Di Xian didn't look old. He was definitely not more than 30 years old. He might even be in his early 20s. In his early 20s, his cultivation had reached the Supreme Realm. This was too shocking. It had never happened in the history of the Divine Wilderness continent. Lu Ming, I heard that your battle strength is very strong. Today I'd like to see how strong you are. Di Xian said, locking his aura on Lu Ming. You want to challenge me? Lu Ming curled the corners of his lips slightly. Behind Di Xian, Di's eyes flickered, but he didn't say anything. He knew that some of the geniuses in the Emperor family were extremely powerful. They were far from being comparable to the so-called geniuses in the Divine Wilderness continent. Although Lu Ming was strong, Di Xian might be able to fight him. Even if he couldn't, letting Lu Ming offend Di Xian would be beneficial to him. That's right. Do you dare to accept my challenge? Di Xian said. Since you're looking for a beating, of course I'll fulfill your wish. Lu Ming smiled and stepped forward, facing Di Xian from afar. Lu Ming, I heard that you're a rare genius in the divine wilderness continent. However, I'll let you know that the so-called geniuses in a barbaric island like yours are nothing but a joke. Di Xian sneered. His body began to flicker with light. The light was like strands of sword qi. Clang! A battle sword appeared in Di Xian's hand. He stepped toward Lu Ming and shouted, Kill! Swoosh! A sword aura split the sky and slashed violently toward Lu Ming. Boom! Lu Ming punched out with the hell-suppressing heaven skill. The fist force collided with the sword qi. The space was torn into pieces. Lu Ming's body shook, and he was forced to take 3 steps back. However, Di Xian stood still in the air. Hiss! Many people in Dragon Emperor City gasped at the same time. Lu Ming was forced back by a single sword strike? In the Battle of the Sacred City, everyone still remembered Lu Ming's shocking strength. Even a peak LV2 martial royal realm martial artist with the spiritual weapon of the Emperor realm was killed by Lu Ming. Now Lu Ming was forced back by a single sword strike. Moreover, his opponent was a young man who was less than 30 years old. It was shocking. His body. Lu Ming's heart stirred, and he was secretly shocked. Although he did not use his full strength, just now, and only displayed the cultivation of a perfect spirit god, he still unleashed the power of 9 dragons, and performed the hell-suppressing heaven skill. Even an ordinary emperor would not be a match for him. However, his opponent was only a supreme being, and yet the battle prowess he unleashed was shocking. What surprised Lu Ming the most was his opponent's body. It was a spiritual body. Yes, his opponent was only a supreme being, but he had a spiritual body. It was unbelievable. Chapter 1366. However, wasn't a true spiritual body something that could only be condensed after reaching the Emperor realm? That's a spiritual body. That's right. It's a sword spiritual body. How is that possible? How can a prime have a spiritual body? The emperors of the Dragon Alliance were in an uproar. Even Xiao Wan and the old general, who had lived for a long time, were shocked. They could naturally feel the power of Di Xian's spiritual body. Innate spiritual body. That's an innate spiritual body. Haha. How can these bumpkins know the power of an innate spiritual body? An innate spiritual body is an innate spiritual body. Behind them, Di Yi's eyes were filled with shock, but he was also laughing in his heart. He was born in Yuanlu, so his vision was naturally different. He knew that some people were blessed by the heavens. They were born with a spiritual body. This was known as the innate spiritual body. Such people were born as peerless geniuses. Needless to say, their bloodline would definitely be able to awaken a level 9 divine level. At the same time, their bloodline and spiritual body would be in perfect harmony. Such people were blessed by nature and had an advantage over others in terms of bloodline martial skills, comprehension of intent, and comprehension of various martial skills. Therefore, their combat strength was also terrifying. And Di Xian was such a person. You can block one of my attacks. Come again. Di Xian shouted. Rays of sword-shaped light flowed on the surface of his body. He slashed with his battle sword, and a shocking sword qi slashed toward Lu Ming. Primal chaos. Lu Ming stepped forward and displayed the primal chaos intent. At the same time, his third bloodline appeared and he punched out again. It was the same suppressing hell heaven skill, but when combined with the primal chaos intent, its power skyrocketed. Boom! This time, Lu Ming did not move at all. Instead, it was Di Xian who was pushed back. Damn it! Kill! Di Xian was furious after being pushed back. His aura rose to the extreme, and his domain covered his entire body. He charged toward Lu Ming and slashed with his sword. The roar of 100 beasts could be heard. Di Xian's martial skill was not to be underestimated. It seemed to have maximized the power of the domain. Domain martial skill. A thought flashed through Lu Ming's mind. Domain martial skill was similar to martial skill of intent. A concept martial technique could unleash the power of a concept to the extreme, while a domain martial technique could unleash the power of a domain martial technique to the extreme. Xian's domain martial technique was even more shocking. The sword light seemed to be able to destroy everything. Lu Ming added the concept of primal chaos to his body and fought fiercely with his opponent. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged several dozen moves. To be honest, Xian was really strong. He was the strongest young man Lu Ming had ever met. His strength was comparable to Lu Ming's strength before he had achieved the Nine Heavens Supreme Realm, which was equivalent to the peak second-layer martial dominator realm. He was only a supreme being, yet his battle prowess was already so shocking. It was beyond imagination. At the same level, he was even stronger Than Long Chun. The bloodline that Long Chun had awakened was the Archean dragonesque elephant, one of the top 10 beasts. But now, Lu Ming had already broken through to the supreme being level, so he naturally didn't think much of it. Damn it! How can there be such a strong person on a desolate island? The more they fought, the more frightened Xian became. This person definitely has a secret. If I can obtain his secret, I will definitely become stronger. Who knows? I might even be able to compete with those monstrous geniuses in my clan. Upon having this thought, Xian's heart began to burn. Clang! His glabella shone, and a dazzling golden battle sword flew out, slashing at Lu Ming. Clang! Lu Ming's punch collided with the sword, causing his figure to be knocked backward. A martial dominator weapon. Lu Ming's eyes flickered, but he was not too surprised. With his talent and background, it was normal for him to have a martial dominator weapon. Die! Xian let out a roar as he charged at Lu Ming. Is this all you've got? Let's end this. Lu Ming uttered a roar as the chaotic will encapsulating his figure changed rapidly. It contracted rapidly at first, before it blossomed. It was no longer a will, but a domain, the embryonic form of the chaotic domain. Meanwhile, Lu Ming's aura skyrocketed. Supreme Being, the Alliance leader has achieved the Nine Heavens Supreme Realm. Xiao Wan and the others were overjoyed. Bang! Lu Ming's fist was wrapped in the embryonic form of the chaotic domain, as he threw a punch at Xian's martial dominator weapon. Clang! The battle sword vibrated violently as Xian's expression changed drastically. His body shook violently as he was sent flying like a cannonball. Along the way, he spat out blood. When Lu Ming revealed his true strength, Xian was crushed and severely injured. Die! Lu Ming's figure flashed as he caught up with Xian and threw a punch at his heart. This punch was enough to penetrate Xian's heart. However, when Lu Ming's punch was about to hit Xian's heart, Xian's body suddenly emitted a dazzling golden light as a golden armor appeared. Clang! Lu Ming's fist landed on the armor. The armor shook violently, but it did not break as it blocked most of Lu Ming's fist energy. However, Lu Ming's punch was too powerful. Although the armor had blocked most of the force, a small part of the fist force still blasted into Xian's body. Xian screamed in agony. His chest caved in and blood spurted out of his mouth like crazy. A defensive Emperor spiritual weapon. Lu Ming's heart stirred. This Xian was really rich. He even had a defense-type Emperor spirit weapon. What Lu Ming had encountered in the past were all attack-type Emperor spirit weapons. Relatively speaking, defensive Emperor spirit weapons were more precious than attack-type Emperor spirit weapons. A defensive Emperor spiritual weapon could save one's life at a critical moment. If Xian did not have this armor, he would have been killed by Lu Ming's punch. How dare you hurt young master? Kill him! Xian was severely injured. His subordinates roared and attacked Lu Ming fiercely. 6 peak LV2 martial kings and 2 LV3 martial kings attacked at the same time. Oh no! Xiao Wan, Xia Jiuyang, and the others were shocked. Die! A battle sword appeared in Lu Ming's hand. It was the Emperor's spiritual weapon, the Dragon Vein Sword, that he had taken from the Flood Dragon Sovereign when they were fighting for the pure spiritual body cultivation technique in the ancient underwater city. Lu Ming had broken through to the Martial King realm and controlled the embryonic form of the realm. He was able to activate the power of an Emperor spiritual weapon. Moreover, Lu Ming's embryonic form of the realm was the chaotic realm. The chaotic realm could transform into other realms at will. In other words, Lu Ming could use any kind of emperor spiritual weapon, except for space-time, and a few other types. Swoosh! The battle sword slashed out, and a peak LV2 martial king expert was cut in half. He died on the spot. Clang! Then, the battle sword moved sideways and clashed with the LV3 martial king expert, forcing him to retreat. Let's attack. Swoosh! Xiao Wan controlled a demonic saber, a martial emperor spiritual weapon, and charged at the two-peak second-layer martial emperor realm martial artists. At the same time, the old general and Tu Qian also attacked. Both of them controlled emperor spiritual weapons and surrounded the remaining two-peak LV2 martial kings. Chapter 1367. Kill them. Kill them all. Di Xian roared furiously in the distance. It had been too dangerous. Di Xian felt as if he had just brushed shoulders with the god of death. He was scared and broke out in a cold sweat. He had not expected to be almost killed by a peer on a desolate island. He was furious, and his killing intent was cold. The silver-haired elder appeared behind Di Xian, but he did not make a move. Let's see who will kill who. Xiao Wan and the other two blocked the 5 LV2 martial royal realm experts, while Lu Ming attacked the 2 LV3 martial royal realm experts. Clang! Clang! Sword cries shook the sky. A golden battle sword appeared in the hands of the 2 LV3 martial royal realm experts. They were both royal spiritual weapons. How powerful would a LV3 martial royal realm expert be when controlling a royal spiritual weapon? However, Lu Ming was not afraid at all. He slashed down with the dragon vein sword, which was wrapped in the embryonic form of the chaotic territory. Clang! The two swords collided, forming rings of sword ripples that spread out. The LV3 martial royal realm expert was no match for Lu Ming. His body trembled, and he kept retreating. How is this possible? Not far away, Di Xian and the silver-haired elder narrowed their eyes in disbelief. Lu Ming's combat strength was actually able to suppress a LV3 martial royal realm expert? On the ground, the experts of the Dragon League were very excited. Some of them clenched their fists tightly. Lu Ming was too powerful. He had not reached the royal realm, but he could suppress a LV3 martial royal realm expert. There was no LV3 martial royal realm expert in the divine region. 30,000 years ago, Xiao Wan had reached the LV3 martial royal realm at his peak. However, such an expert was suppressed by Lu Ming. Alliance leader, this was the alliance leader of the Dragon League. Lu Ming would not be a match for a LV3 martial royal realm expert in the Battle of the Sacred City. Moreover, the other party had a royal spiritual weapon. However, Lu Ming had reached the sovereign realm, and his combat strength had increased tremendously. He was no longer comparable to the Battle of the Sacred City. Swish! Meanwhile, another third-layer martial dominator realm expert charged toward Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming didn't seem to notice. He raised his dragon vein sword and charged at the person he had forced back. Just as the sword of the person behind Lu Ming was about to reach him, a figure stepped out from between Lu Ming's eyebrows. The second body, Lu Ming's second body. Whoosh! The second body pointed its finger like a sword and slashed out, blocking the opponent's battle sword. During this period of time, Lu Ming's main body was cultivating. Naturally, his second body was not idle either. His second body cultivated wholeheartedly without any distractions, and his speed of improvement was even faster. During the Holy City War, the second body had only condensed one golden spirit lamp, but during this period of time, the second body had condensed a second golden spirit lamp, greatly increasing its combat strength. Whoosh! 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 5 phoenix feather flying swords flew out from the second body's glabella and attacked the other party. The opponent was shocked and could only brandish his sword to block. Lu Ming's main body continued to attack the opponent. The embryonic form of the chaotic domain wrapped around the dragon vein sword. The power of Lu Ming's sword was unimaginably strong. Clang! The opponent was completely passive and could only brandish his sword to block. When the two swords clashed for the second time, the opponent's body trembled continuously. His face was pale and he kept retreating. Swish! Swish! Lu Ming unleashed a torrential attack, and the dragon vein sword slashed out continuously. Lu Ming had completely gained the upper hand. Suddenly, 4 sealing gates appeared in the sky, emitting a resplendent light as they moved to seal the other party. At this moment, the opponent was frozen. Although it was only for a moment, it was enough. Prison-suppressing steel. Lu Ming performed the bloodline fusion and transformed into the prison-suppressing steel. Boom! The prison-suppressing steel directly suppressed the opponent. Lu Ming had become a supreme being, comprehended the embryonic form of the chaotic domain, and transformed into the prison-suppressing steel. How powerful was he? Although the opponent desperately broke open the sealed doors and blocked with his sword at the critical moment, his body still trembled violently. Crackling sounds came from his body, and he almost exploded. Blood spurted out of his mouth. Swish! Under the control of Lu Ming's spiritual sense, the dragon vein sword was as fast as lightning and slashed out. The opponent had just been severely injured by the prison-suppressing steel that Lu Ming had transformed into. How could he dodge? The dragon vein sword slashed out, and a head flew high into the air. The dragon vein sword twisted again, and the opponent's spiritual deity was also turned into ashes. A third-level martial emperor expert was dead. On the other side, the battle between the second bodies was also coming to an end. The second body lit up an additional golden spirit lamp, and his combat strength had greatly increased compared to the battle in the Holy City. At this time, he took out the myriad formation image and trapped the opponent. Swish! 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 5 phoenix feather flying swords pierced 5 holes in the opponent's body and killed him in one fell swoop. 2 third-level martial emperors were killed just like that. In the Dragon Emperor City, the experts of the Dragon Alliance were shocked and overjoyed. De Xian and the others were in disbelief. Kill! Kill! Lu Ming's main body and second body rushed toward Xian at the same time. Oh no, young master, retreat! Beside Xian, the silver-haired elder's expression changed. A golden sword appeared in his hand. He took a step forward and came to the front of Xian. Dazzling sword chi slashed toward Lu Ming violently. There was no doubt that the silver-haired elder's sword was also a spiritual weapon of the emperor level. At the same time, the silver-haired elder's cultivation was even more amazing. He had reached the peak of the third-level martial emperor level. However, facing the joint attack of Lu Ming's main body and second body, the silver-haired elder was still no match for them. After a few moves, the silver-haired elder kept retreating. Go retreat! Xian also panicked. Lu Ming's strength was beyond his imagination. He was much stronger than what De had said. Even a third-level martial emperor expert was no match for him. He shouted and turned to run. Clang! Boom! Lu Ming's main body and second body joined forces and exchanged another blow with the silver-haired elder. The silver-haired elder was forced to retreat dozens of miles. Whoosh! The second body rushed toward Xian. Oh no! The silver-haired elder's expression changed drastically. He ignored the battle and merged with his sword. He turned into a sword light and instantly appeared in front of Xian. In an instant, he slashed out 108 sword lights in all directions. The spirit fire between the second body's eyebrows jumped. Countless large formations on the million formation illustration shown. Various large formations, attacks and trapping formations poured toward the silver-haired elder and Xian. At the same time, the 5 phoenix feather flying swords stabbed at them. Lu Ming's main body also arrived. The silver-haired elder tried his best to protect Xian, but the situation was critical. Young master, use the void-breaking shuttle. The silver-haired elder shouted. Void-breaking shuttle? Yes, yes, yes. Xian was scared out of his wits. His face was pale, and his body was trembling. After the silver-haired elder's reminder, he nodded repeatedly. His glabella shone, and a spiritual weapon with 2 sharp ends and a thicker middle flew out. As soon as the spiritual weapon appeared, it rapidly expanded. A light curtain enveloped Xian and the silver-haired elder. Let's go. The silver-haired elder activated his genuine yuan. The void-breaking shuttle shone, and with a shake, it shattered the void and disappeared. Chapter 1368. You want to leave? Boom. The prison-suppressing steel pressed down on the void, and the space within 1,000 miles exploded. However, the void-breaking shuttle had completely disappeared. Another Emperor-level spiritual weapon, and it's an escape type. Lu Ming frowned. It was a pity. His opponent was so rich that he had all kinds of Emperor-level spiritual weapons. First there were attack types, then there were defense types, and now there were even escape types. Under the control of the silver-haired elder, the void-breaking shuttle was so fast that it disappeared in an instant. It was much faster than tearing the void. Di Xian had escaped, and Lu Ming turned his eyes in another direction. "De, where are you going?" Lu Ming transformed back into his human form. There was a cold smile at the corners of his lips. At this time, De was desperately escaping. De's face was full of horror and disbelief. Only a few months had passed, and Lu Ming's combat strength had soared again. Without the help of the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron, he had killed a LV3 Martial Royal Realm expert. How could it be? How could it be? De roared in his heart. He was extremely unwilling, and at the same time, he was desperately escaping. Buzz! Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of him. Lu Ming! De's pupils contracted sharply. The one who appeared in front of De was Lu Ming's second body. De, you can't burn your spiritual body this time. Do you think you can still escape? Lu Ming's voice sounded behind De. Behind him was the main body. Kill! De was very decisive and attacked directly. However, his cultivation had regressed to the peak of LV1 Martial Royal Realm, and his 10,000 veins spiritual body had been destroyed. His combat strength was worlds apart from Lu Ming's. The second body waved his hand, and the 10,000 formation image appeared, trapping De in it. De, I'll kill you later. Lu Ming sneered, and stepped out toward the battlefield where Xiao Wan and the others were fighting. The 5 experts at the peak of LV2 Martial Royal Realm were scared out of their wits. They wanted to escape, but they were entangled by Xiao Wan and the others. Whoosh! 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 With the dragon vein sword in his hand, Lu Ming slashed out 5 times in a row, killing 5 experts at the peak of LV2 Martial Royal Realm. Everyone in the Dragon Emperor City was stunned. They stared blankly at Lu Ming. 5 peak second layer Martial Royal Realm experts had killed 5 of them with 1 strike each. This kind of visual effect, this kind of impact was really too strong. In the Divine Wilderness continent, the peak of the second layer of the Martial King realm would be considered an expert who stood at the peak. However, in the hands of Lu Ming, he was as weak as a chicken. Alliance Master is invincible. The Alliance Master is unparalleled. All of a sudden, a shocking roar broke out in the Dragon Emperor City. Countless people were so excited that their faces turned red as they roared madly. At this moment, Lu Ming's figure was irreplaceable in their hearts. He was indomitable and invincible. The whistling sound came wave after wave. Lu Ming's prestige reached its peak. Lu Ming raised his hand and pressed down in the air. Dragon Emperor City quieted down at once. Whoosh! Lu Ming moved and appeared in front of De. Lu Ming, do you know who we are? Do you know who young Master Di Xian is? Let me tell you. We are from Yuanlu, the D clan of Yuanlu. If you dare to kill the people of D clan, you are dead. Young Master Di Xian will not let you go. The entire Divine Wilderness continent will be buried with you. De roared. Yuanlu sect? D clan? Lu Ming frowned. He had already guessed that Di Xian and the others had an extraordinary background. However, he had not expected them to be from Yuanlu sect. Xiao Wan, the old general, and the others' pupils shrank as they gasped. Yuanlu sect De was actually from Yuanlu. That was Yuanlu. It was not something that the Divine Wilderness continent or the Divine Ruins continent could compare with. Legend had it that Yuanlu sect was filled with experts and experts. There were countless existences that had surpassed the Martial Royal Realm. Such experts could destroy the Divine Wilderness continent with a snap of their fingers. Everyone who had heard about Yuanlu sect looked worried. When De saw this, he sneered and said, Lu Ming, you'd better let me go. Perhaps I can help you deal with them. Ha ha ha, what a joke! Before De could finish his words, Lu Ming laughed loudly and interrupted him. De, you used to be a mighty lord. Now you are using this to scare me in order to survive. How pitiful and sad. Lu Ming sneered. Lu Ming, you. Di was furious. Di, let me tell you, you will die today. And that Di Xian, if he stops now, it will be fine. However, if he is stubborn, I will destroy the Di clan of Yuanlu. Lu Ming shouted. His voice reverberated throughout the Imperial Dragon City. The Di clan of Yuanlu. I will destroy them. What kind of heroic spirit was this? How confident was that? Di was stunned. Then he laughed crazily. Lu Ming, you want to destroy the Di clan? You are too short-sighted. You are just a frog at the bottom of a well. Lu Ming, do you know how many experts there are in Yuanlu? Emperors are ants. Do you know how strong the Di clan is? How dare you claim that you have destroyed the Di clan? If your words spread to Yuanlu sect, many people will laugh their heads off. Di laughed as if he did not care about life and death. So what if they are strong? Back then, I came from a small country in Tianxian domain in eastern wasteland. Back then Di Tian Divine Palace was also a giant. You De were also high and mighty. But what about now? Lu Ming said calmly. He was full of confidence. De shut his mouth. Roar. The 9 dragons bloodline appeared above Lu Ming's head. De, haven't you always wanted the 9 dragons blood essence? Today, I will kill you with the 9 dragons bloodline. Then, the 9 dragons bloodline opened its mouth and engulfed De with its devouring power. Ever since the 9 dragons bloodline had merged with the 9 drops of 9 dragons blood essence, its devouring power had increased many times. It was shockingly strong. Enveloped by the devouring power, De's life essence, blood essence, heart blood, and other things were rapidly being devoured by the 9 dragons. Even though De was an overlord with a strong mind and was prepared to be killed, in such a situation, he still roared in fear and struggled with all his might. But in the 10,000 formation image, struggling was futile. After a while, De's life essence was completely devoured, and he turned into a dried corpse. In Dragon Emperor City, countless people looked at the sky with complicated expressions. De was an overlord of a generation. He had planned for 10,000 years, and had almost unified the divine wilderness continent. If it were not for the appearance of a rare genius like Lu Ming, De would have succeeded and unified the divine wilderness. De could be called an overlord of a generation, but in the end, he died in the hands of Lu Ming. Let the alliance establishment ceremony continue. Lu Ming turned around, stepped down, and landed in the Dragon Emperor City. His voice spread throughout the city. The alliance leader is invincible. Their shouts resounded through the sky. After this battle, Lu Ming's prestige reached its peak. Chapter 1369. Following that, the alliance ceremony went on smoothly. The powerhouses swore to form an alliance, and were given territories. After that, it was time for the banquet. The banquet lasted for a day and a night before the crowd slowly dispersed. In the north of the divine wilderness continent, on a boundless sea, the space cracked open, and the space-piercing shuttle appeared. Buzz! The space-piercing shuttle shook and shrunk, revealing 2 figures. They were Di Xian and the silver-haired elder. Puff! The silver-haired elder spat out a mouthful of blood as soon as he appeared. After the battle with Lu Ming and the journey through the night, the silver-haired elder had suffered serious injuries. However, Di Xian did not even look at the silver-haired elder. His eyes were cold and his face was ferocious. He looked to the south and roared, "That bastard! I'll tear that Lu Ming into pieces." It was fine if he was in the Yuanlu, but he had suffered such a great loss on the divine wilderness continent, an uncivilized island. Not only had he lost several martial emperor spiritual weapons, but he had also fled. It was a great humiliation. He hated Lu Ming to the core. As for his dead subordinates, Di Xian did not care at all. In his eyes, they were nothing more than insignificant ants. In the Di clan, there were too many ants like this. The silver-haired elder's eyes showed a trace of sadness, but it disappeared in a flash. "Master, what should we do now?" The silver-haired elder asked. "What else can we do? Return to the Yuanlu, of course." Di Xian gritted his teeth. "Return to the Yuanlu to find experts to take revenge?" The silver-haired elder asked carefully. "Idiot! Do you know how much it costs to teleport some people from the Yuan continent to this remote and desolate island? The family has already made an exception for me. This time, they won't let me do it again in a short time. However, it won't be for long. Once I've achieved the martial dominator realm and achieved a certain status in the clan, I'll come again. 10 years, at most 10 years, I'll destroy the entire godly desolation continent together with that kid. Di Xian roared with a ferocious face. After a long while, he calmed down and flew back to the Bayou continent with the silver-haired elder. Lu Ming's life had completely calmed down. Every day, other than cultivating by himself, he would be teaching his 2 disciples. Sometimes he would also teach his parents, Hua Qi, and the others through discussions. As for his second body, other than cultivating, he would also preach occasionally. His second body had obtained the inheritance of a saint, and had broken through to become a ruler. His knowledge of the path of inscription could be said to be the best in the divine wilderness continent. Therefore, every time the second body of inscription refinement opened the altar and preached the Tao, people that cultivated the Tao of inscription would swarm over. Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and the others did not miss a single time. There were even rulers who went to listen to the lecture. Lu Ming didn't hide anything and imparted all of his cultivation experience to him. At the same time, the population of Dragon Emperor City was increasing, making it more and more prosperous. The entire Divine Wilderness continent, the entire Dragon Alliance, was filled with vitality. It was flourishing and growing stronger. Even though the number of sovereigns in the Divine Wilderness continent could be said to be the lowest in history, aside from the people from the Western Desert and a few from the Xie family, there were less than 20 emperors in the entire Dragon Alliance. However, with this situation, it wouldn't take too long for the number of sovereigns to slowly increase. Now that the Dragon Alliance had unified the world, resources were integrated, and various cultivation holy lands were open to the public. The treatment that those top geniuses could enjoy was many times better than before. In the past, the various overlord forces ruled over a region and cherished their own resources. Their resources were extremely limited, but now they could choose any resources they wanted. The cultivation speed of the younger generation's geniuses had greatly increased. The sovereigns also imparted their cultivation experiences to them. It was believed that their chances of breaking through to the ruler realm in the future would also increase. A month after the alliance was established, Yen Kuangtu successfully broke through and became a ruler. The number of sovereigns in the Dragon Alliance increased by another. 2 months after the alliance was established, with the help of Lu Ming, Xiao Wan finally took a step forward. A large portion of his origin was restored, and his cultivation finally recovered to the 3rd level of the Martial Emperor realm. He became the strongest person in the Dragon Alliance apart from Lu Ming. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed since the alliance ceremony. In the past 3 months, Lu Ming's cultivation had increased steadily. The embryonic form of his domain was growing stronger day by day. Various martial skills were also improving. What was worth mentioning was that Lu Ming had fused 9 drops of 9 dragons' blood essence and absorbed the 9 dragons' cultivation experience. He had finally cultivated the 9th step of the 9 dragons, sky-stomping steps to perfection. As for his pure spirit body, he had also cultivated it to 70%. Xian Yanqing had also been cultivating hard. His improvement was very fast, and he was only 1 step away from the supremacy level. However, Dandan and Bubbles were still asleep and hadn't woken up. At this time, there was less than a year before the 2-year agreement to go to the Dragon God Valley. Back then, what happened to Long Chun and the others? Why did Long Chun disappear and only Underworld Child, Heartless Monk, and the other 2 came back? Now that Underworld Child is dead, only Heartless Monk and Moonless know. It seems that it's time to make a trip to the Western Desert. In a pavilion in a courtyard of the Alliance leader's mansion in Dragon Emperor City, Lu Ming was drinking tea as his thoughts flew. He decided to find out Long Chen's whereabouts. Long Chen was a good person, and could be considered a friend of Lu Ming's. Back in the Godly Ruins continent, it was Lu Ming who had implicated him. If Long Chen was killed because of Lu Ming would feel uneasy. Thinking of this, Lu Ming took a step forward and disappeared. The Western Desert had always been the world of Buddhism, and Buddhism ruled this place. Almost everyone in the Western Desert believed in Buddhism. Moreover, the Western Desert had always been mysterious and had never participated in the battles of the divine wilderness continent. However, no one dared to underestimate the Western Desert. There was once an emperor who led an army to attack the Western Desert, but in the end, he did not return and did not cause any trouble. Even if the divine wilderness continent entered a rare chaos this time, the Western Desert still stayed out of it. Swoosh! At the border of the Western Desert, Lu Ming's figure appeared. Looking into the distance, Lu Ming's figure was like a rainbow as he flew toward the depths of the Western Desert. The vast territory of the Western Desert was filled with countless temples and ancient temples. Lu Ming's target this time was the oldest and most ancient temple in the Western Desert, the Bodhi Temple. It was said that the Heartless Monk and the Moonless Bodhisattva both came from the Bodhi Temple and were in seclusion there. Lu Ming's speed was so fast that it did not take long for him to cross more than half of the Western Desert. So many experts. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. Along the way, Lu Ming discovered many powerful auras. Lu Ming discovered no less than 20 auras of supremes. In fact, he even discovered 2 auras of emperors. Lu Ming was still flying in a straight line, but he had already discovered so many experts. It was incredible. Sometimes, there would even be a supremes in a rundown temple. It was truly shocking. It was said that the Western Desert was second only to the Middle Continent among the 5 major domains. It seemed that the rumors were true. Soon, a temple on a majestic mountain appeared before Lu Ming's eyes. Chapter 1370. As soon as Lu Ming arrived, a Bodhi glow appeared before Lu Ming, as a bulky 3-meter-tall monk appeared before Lu Ming. Halt! This is the sacred ground of the Buddhism sect. The burly monk was like a Buddhist Vajra. He extended his hand and blocked Lu Ming. Master, Junior Lu Ming would like to pay a visit to Master Wuliang and Moonless Bodhisattva of your sect. Lu Ming brought his fists together and said politely, Lu Ming, you're the leader of the Dragon Alliance? The bulky monk's eyes widened as his eyes flickered with astonishment. I am, Lu Ming said. So it's Alliance leader Lu, but Wuliang and Moonless are currently in seclusion. I'm afraid it's not convenient for them to meet. The bulky monk said. Still in seclusion? Lu Ming frowned and said, Master, can you pass the message that Lu Ming is only here to ask a few questions? I'll be leaving after that. Alliance leader Lu, I've already told you, Wuliang and Moonless are currently in seclusion. I'm afraid it's difficult for them to meet. The bulky monk spoke in a domineering tone. Lu Ming's expression darkened slightly. It was only a one-time meeting. Besides, with Lu Ming's current identity, he could be considered the ruler of the godly desolate region. But the monk still insisted on stopping him. There must be something fishy going on behind the scenes. Lu Ming was wondering if he should force his way in. Although the bulky monk possessed a cultivation of the first-layer martial dominator realm, there was no way he could stop Lu Ming. Kong Jian, let Alliance leader Lu in. At that instant, an ancient voice could be heard coming from the Bodhi Temple. Following this, a Bodhi glow appeared as a kind-looking old monk appeared beside the bulky monk. A Bodhi glow appeared above the old monk's head. The powerful aura caused Lu Ming's eyes to widen. Third-layer martial dominator realm. This old monk possessed a cultivation of the third-layer martial dominator realm, causing Lu Ming's heart to be filled with astonishment. Apart from Ciel Wan, there was another third-layer martial dominator realm expert in the godly desolate region. The Western Desert really shocked Lu Ming. If such an expert were to participate in the struggle for hegemony in the divine wilderness continent, how could DE even stand a chance? Kong Jian greets Abbot Kong Hai. The burly monk greeted the old monk. As it turned out, this person was the abbot of the Bodhi Temple. Amitba, old Na Kong Hai greets Alliance Master Lu. Master Kong Hai bowed and said, Grandmaster is too polite. Lu Ming greets Grandmaster. Lu Ming returned the greeting. Alliance leader Lu, please come in. This old monk knew that Alliance leader Lu would come this morning. I've already informed Wuliang and Wu Yue to come out and meet you, Master Kong Hai said. Lu Ming raised his eyebrows, but he didn't say anything. He entered the Bodhi temple with Kong Hai and Kong Jian, then sat down in an elegant courtyard and waited. Lu Ming, long time no see. I knew you wouldn't die. Not long after, a nondescript Buddhist chant was heard. Monk Wuliang and Moonless Bodhisattva walked over. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. Meanwhile, Kong Hai and Kong Jian had already left, allowing Lu Ming and the others to chat among themselves. Wuliang, what exactly happened at the Godly Ruins continent? The people of the Southern God Palace came to the Divine Wilderness continent and said that I was killed by the geniuses of the Heavenly God sect after offending them. Why didn't you say anything? Lu Ming went straight to the point and asked the question that had been bothering him. Sai Lu Ming, you can't blame me, Monk Wuliang yelled. It was the experts of the Southern God Palace that sent us back, the Wang clan. When they arrived at the Divine Wilderness continent, they told us not to spread the news. You should know that the Southern God Palace is extremely powerful. They even have a fourth-layer martial dominator realm expert. I didn't dare to disobey them. Besides, that old monk Kong Hai is a coward, so he told us to cultivate in seclusion instead of worrying about the outside world. Monk Wuliang wore an exaggerated expression. He kept referring to Abbot Kong Hai as old monk Kong Hai. How strange. Ba. Moonless Bodhisattva uttered a chant and pretended not to hear it. By the way, Lu Ming, were you being hunted by the Southern God Palace? At that time, I really thought you were dead. Monk Wuliang added. Oh, I'm too lazy to look into it. What about Long Chen? Didn't he come back with you? Where is he? Lu Ming asked. Sigh, Long Chen is most likely dead. He was taken away by the people of the Wang clan. Monk Wuliang let out a sigh. The Wang clan? Lu Ming's eyes turned cold as he said. Do you know why they took Long Chen away? I don't know. Monk Wuliang shook his head. Lu Ming frowned. Was it because he had offended the genius of the Wang clan, Wang Zhen, that the Wang clan was trying to take out their anger on Long Chen? Alright, Lu Ming, that's all I know. You came at the right time. If you were a few days later, you wouldn't be able to see us. Monk Wuliang said. Oh, you're leaving? Lu Ming asked curiously. That's right. In a few days, Wu Yue and I will head to Yuanlu and join the major Buddhist sects there. Haha. I'm indeed the darling of the heavens, the reincarnation of a Buddhist emperor. Lu Ming, I'll catch up with you soon. Monk Wuliang laughed out loud, feeling smug. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. It seemed that the Western Desert's waters ran deep. They could even contact the major Buddhist sects in Yuanlu. Then we'll meet in Yuanlu in the future, Lu Ming said. After that, Lu Ming bade farewell and left. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, another month had passed. In the past few days, Lu Ming received news that unknown experts had appeared on the shores of the Divine Wilderness continent. Lu Ming frowned and ordered them to be more vigilant. On the shores of the eastern wilderness of the Divine Wilderness continent, a figure suddenly appeared. A terrifying aura emanated from his body. It was the aura of an emperor. I've finally arrived at the Divine Wilderness continent. That Lu Ming should be on the Divine Wilderness continent. The figure wore a green robe. His eyes were narrow and sharp. At that moment, there was a hint of greed in his eyes. His body swayed and flew toward the depths of the eastern wilderness. Soon he arrived outside Kowloon City. What a majestic city. There's an emperor here. I can find out about Lu Ming's whereabouts. The green-robed man sneered and rushed into Kowloon City. He appeared in the depths of the city. A vast aura emanated from his body and pressed down on Kowloon City. What's going on? He's so powerful. Emperor. That's an emperor. Which emperor from the Dragon Alliance has arrived? In Kowloon City, many people were suppressed by the aura and almost knelt down. Some of the weaker ones even spat out blood. Who is it? A loud shout came from the depths of Kowloon City. A burly man rushed out. This burly man was Chu Luo. He was ordered to guard Kowloon City. When Chu Luo saw the green-robed man, his eyes narrowed. That was because he did not know him. Currently, all the emperors in the Divine Wilderness continent, except for those from the Western Desert, had joined the Dragon Alliance. Chu Luo was familiar with every one of them. However, he did not know this person. Clearly, He was not an emperor from the divine wilderness continent and came from overseas. Hee, you're finally out. Let me ask you a question. You'd better answer honestly. Otherwise you'll suffer. The green-robed man chuckled. What do you want to ask? Chu Luo asked. Have you heard of Lu Ming? Chapter 1371. Alliance Master? Why are you looking for the Alliance Master? Chu Luo was stunned and asked. Alliance Master? Looks like Lu Ming's status isn't low here. Speak, where's Lu Ming now? Said the green-robed man. Why are you looking for the Alliance Master? Asked Chu Luo cautiously. Nonsense. Just speak when I tell you to. You really have a lot of nonsense. The green-robed man shouted coldly with impatience, and a powerful aura surged from his body and pressed down towards Chu Luo. Chu Luo's body shook, and he couldn't help but take a few steps back. His expression changed violently as he exclaimed, Second level of the Martial Emperor realm. The green-robed man was actually at the second level of the Martial Emperor realm. Why are you looking for the Alliance Master? Otherwise, don't even think about telling you. Chu Luo roared loudly. Still not speaking? You're courting death. The green-robed man's gaze turned cold as he slapped out with his palm. Chu Luo's figure retreated madly, and layers of defenses appeared before him. Bang! 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 However, Chu Luo's defenses were shattered by the green-robed man's palm strike. Chu Luo spat out large mouthfuls of blood as his body was blasted flying like a cannonball. Let's go! Chu Luo didn't hesitate at all to turn around and flee. Oomph! Do you think I won't know just because you fled? The green-robed man shouted coldly and didn't pursue Chu Luo. His figure appeared below Nine Dragon City and grabbed the head of a domain god. And a green mist enveloped the domain god. The domain god let out a shrill and miserable cry, and the others nearby were terrified to the point of trembling. Speak. Where's Lu Ming? Asked the green-robed man coldly. The Alliance Master is at Dragon Emperor City. Dragon Emperor City. That person cried out loudly. Dragon Emperor City? Give me the map. The green-robed man shouted coldly. That person didn't dare disobey, and he withdrew a map from his storage ring and passed it to the green-robed man. The green-robed man flung the domain god flying, and then he opened the map to take a look. He laughed coldly. Hee. Lu Ming, I finally found you. I didn't waste my time rushing over here from the green-rich continent. With a cold light flashing across his eyes, the man in green strode towards Dragon Emperor City. If Lu Ming was here, he would know that the Green Abundance Continent was a continent in the southern part of the Divine Ruins Continent group. It was right next to the Divine Wilderness Continent. As soon as the green-robed man left, the domain enlightened spirit god that was captured by the green-robed man gasped for breath, while cold sweat flowed from his body. Right when he thought he'd escaped calamity, a ball of green mist suddenly emerged from his body and enveloped him. A cry of agony was heard once again. After a short while, when the mist dispersed, only a skeleton remained of the domain enlightened spirit god. Hiss hiss hiss. The people nearby all sucked in a breath of cold air. Similar scenes played out in the southern underworld and the northern plains. The rulers of both places were attacked. In Dragon Emperor City, Lu Ming had also received the news. An expert who fought to a draw with the continent has appeared in the southern underworld. Lu Ming frowned. All parties were under attack. The ones who appeared were all martial emperors with formidable cultivations. The weakest among them was a second-layer martial dominator realm expert. Only Nanming was confirmed to be an emperor from the Zhanping continent. The Zhanping continent? According to the news, it's very likely that they're from a few different continents. Strange. Lu Ming frowned. They came from a few different continents and suddenly came to the Divine Wilderness continent. Moreover, they all had the same goal, to find him Lu Ming. Lu Ming was very puzzled. These powerful figures from different continents had all come to the Divine Wilderness continent to look for him. What exactly was the matter? At this moment, Lu Ming received another piece of news. Someone attacked the Demon God Valley in the northern plains. The Demon God Valley was where Xiao Wan was. Xiao Wan showed his strength and severely injured the enemy. Moreover, he brought that person to the Dragon Emperor City through the trans-territory teleportation formation. Lu Ming was delighted. It was a good opportunity to interrogate him. Lu Ming took a step forward and tore the space apart. In the next moment, he appeared at the trans-territory teleportation formation and saw Xiao Wan. There was also a skinny old man lying on the ground with a pale face. His aura was weak and his face was pale. "I'm from the Bayou continent. You better let me go. Otherwise you will die a horrible death." The skinny old man yelled and threatened Xiao Wan. The old man possessed a cultivation of the second-layer martial dominator realm, but he was no match against Xiao Wan. Bang! Lu Ming arrived and stomped his foot on the old man's face, causing the old man's face to slam into the ground. "Nonsense, tell me, why did you come to the Divine Wilderness continent to find me?" Lu Ming asked coldly. "So you're Lu Ming?" The skinny old man's eyes flickered as he stared at Lu Ming with a greedy look. "Tell me." Lu Ming exerted force with his foot. The old man struggled wildly, but it was useless as his cultivation was sealed. "Lu Ming, you better give me the Chaos Badge and let me go. Otherwise, not only will you die, the entire Divine Wilderness continent will be buried with you." The skinny old man yelled. "Chaos Badge? You're here for the Chaos Badge? Tell me what's going on." Lu Ming yelled. These people were here for the Chaos Badge, which greatly exceeded Lu Ming's expectations, causing him to be even more curious. "Let me go at once," the skinny old man yelled. Bang! Bang! Lu Ming stomped his feet on the old man's legs, causing them to explode and turn into dust. The old man inhaled deeply as his eyes popped out, before he let out a heart-wrenching cry. For a martial emperor, the explosion of his legs was nothing serious, as his spiritual body would be able to recover in a short period of time. However, the heart-wrenching pain was real. Speak. Speak honestly. Tell me the whole story. Otherwise, my next kick will be your dantian. Lu Ming said coldly. The skinny old man's heart tightened. If Lu Ming were to stomp on his dantian, his spiritual god would be in danger. In the end, the skinny old man had no choice but to tell everything he knew. It turned out that a few months ago, there was a shocking piece of news from the Divine Ruins continent. It was said that the Southern Divine Palace had captured a genius, and that genius had a Chaos Badge. With the Chaos Badge, one could freely enter and exit the Divine Ruins and obtain the treasures inside. When the news came out, it caused a huge uproar. Later on, there was another piece of news that the genius with the Chaos Badge came from the Divine Wilderness continent. There was another person in the Divine Wilderness continent who also had the Chaos Badge, and his name was Lu Ming. The news spread like a whirlwind across the Divine Ruins continent, and even to other continents. The ruins of deity were too mysterious. There were countless treasures hidden inside. There were several divine ruins in the Divine Ruins continent, but it was very dangerous inside, especially the core. Even martial emperors would die if they entered. But now, with the Chaos Badge, one could freely enter the Divine Ruins and obtain the treasures inside. This caused the Divine Ruins continent to riot. One of the Chaos Badges was in the hands of the Southern Divine Palace, so the others could only fight for the other one. The one in the hands of Lu Ming. Chapter 1372. Lu Ming speculated that the prodigy controlled by the Southern Divine Palace was Long Chun. Firstly, Long Chun had fallen into the hands of the Wang family, and happened to have the Chaos Origin token. Secondly, the Chaos Origin token wasn't that easy to obtain. Lu Ming estimated that in the entire Divine Ruins continent group, only he and Long Chun had the Chaos Origin token. Previously, he had learned from 2E of the Chaos Palace that the Chaos Origin token depended on one's potential. In the War of Providence, some people's cultivation might far exceed Lu Ming's cultivation, but they might not be able to obtain the Chaos Origin token. Only those who were determined to have great potential could obtain the Chaos Origin token. Through these 2 points, Lu Ming speculated that the prodigy was definitely Long Chun. And the Wang family had used some methods, such as soul searching, to find out from Long Chun that Lu Ming also had a Chaos Origin token. But there was one thing that Lu Ming couldn't figure out. For example, if the Wang family or the other experts of the Southern Divine Palace knew from Long Chun that Lu Ming also had a Chaos Origin token, shouldn't they secretly send experts to capture Lu Ming? How could they spread the news so that all the continents in the Divine Ruins continent group knew about it? This didn't make sense. Boom! At this moment, a powerful aura came crashing down from the sky. The Dragon Emperor city was enveloped by a powerful pressure. Boom! Boom! As soon as this pressure rose, several other pressures erupted and filled the sky above the Dragon Emperor city. At this moment, everyone in the Dragon Emperor city felt like they were being crushed by Mount Tai, and a disaster was imminent. Lu Ming, get out here! Lu Ming, get out here! A few loud roars like thunder exploded in the sky above the Dragon Emperor city, causing many people's eardrums to vibrate, and they almost vomited blood. Good timing! Lu Ming's eyes turned cold as he stepped out and stomped on the skinny old man's dantian. Boom! The berserk power directly pierced through the skinny old man's dantian and scattered the old man's spiritual deity. The old man's eyes bulged as he roared. You didn't keep your word. Lu Ming sneered. I didn't say I wouldn't kill you. Also, you killed your way to the Divine Wilderness continent to steal my primordial chaos token. Do you think I won't kill you? How naive. With the eruption of power, the skinny old man was torn apart. Then, Lu Ming took a step forward and appeared in the sky. Whoosh! Whoosh! With the sound of something breaking through the air, 5 figures appeared beside Lu Ming. Other than Xiao Wan, there were 4 other rulers. In Dragon Emperor City, besides Lu Ming, there were 4 other emperors guarding it. The moment Lu Ming appeared in the sky, he had seen some figures standing around Dragon Emperor City. I am Lu Ming. Lu Ming's voice came from afar. Whoosh! Whoosh! With a flicker, the figures around Dragon Emperor City appeared around Lu Ming and the others, surrounding Lu Ming and the others. Lu Ming, I am the Sacred Sky Emperor of the Zhoning continent. Hand over your primordial chaos token. A burly man with golden hair stared at Lu Ming with a wild aura. The primordial chaos token is mine. I am the ruler of Shuiyu from the Fluttering Snow continent. A beautiful woman in white stared coldly at Lu Ming. These 2 people were both peak 2nd layer martial emperors. They were very powerful. Those who dared to cross the vast distance and come to the Divine Wilderness continent to participate in this battle were the top experts of their respective continents. The weakest of them was a 2nd layer martial emperor. Even the 1st layer martial emperors did not dare to come. They knew that even if they obtained the primordial chaos token, they would not be able to enjoy it. Fluttering Snow continent, Zhoning continent, get lost. A burly man in armor shouted coldly. His aura was extremely shocking. He was a 3rd layer martial emperor. Fighting against the continents, the ruler of Shuiyu and the Sacred Sky Emperor wore stern looks. This 3rd layer martial emperor was from the fighting against the continent. The fighting against the continent was ranked in the top 10 among the continents of the Divine Ruins. Apart from these 3, there were 3 others with a cultivation of the 2nd layer martial emperor. One of them was the old man in a green robe, who surrounded Lu Ming and his crew while glaring at them. Lu Ming, give me your primordial chaos token and I'll spare your life. The emperor of the fighting against the continent stared at Lu Ming coldly. Hee. It seems like you don't know anything about the primordial chaos token. The primordial chaos token was acquired during the Battle of Luck. It has already merged with my body. Even if you have it, You won't be able to use it. Lu Ming said with a smile. Won't be able to use it? That's easy. I just need to cripple you and bring you along. I can still enter the divine ruins and obtain the treasures inside. The Emperor of the Fighting Against the Continent said with a hideous grin. Is that so? Why are you so confident? Have you ever thought that you'll lose your life here? Lu Ming remained calm, but behind his calm expression, there was a cold, murderous intent. Haha, lose my life here? What kind of expert can you find in the divine wilderness? What can you do to me? The Emperor of the Fighting Against the Continent burst into laughter. Oh, if that's the case, die. Lu Ming shouted and suddenly attacked. The chaotic intent realm lingered around him, as the dragon vein sword appeared in his hand, and slashed at the Emperor of the Fighting Against the Continent. The terrifying power caused the Emperor of the Fighting Against the Continent to turn pale. Block it! The Emperor of the Fighting Against the Continent took out a halberd and slashed it down with all his might. He was a third-layer martial emperor. Even an ordinary second-layer martial emperor would be killed by his full-powered attack. However, when Lu Ming's dragon vein sword landed on the halberd vibrated violently and exploded with a bang. The Emperor of the Fighting Against the Continent trembled violently and spat out blood as he retreated. How is this possible? The Emperor of the Fighting Against the Continent yelled in disbelief. He was a third-layer martial emperor, while Lu Ming was only a 9 Heavens Supreme. Although it was unbelievable that he had reached the 9 Heavens Supreme realm at such a young age, he was still a 9 Heavens Supreme. How could his strength be so powerful that he could severely injure the Emperor of the Fighting Against the Continent? Kill! Lu Ming stepped out. His combat sword cut through the void and slashed toward the Emperor of the Continent, who was fighting the same battle. The Emperor of the Fighting Against the Continent tried to dodge the attack, but he suddenly discovered that his surroundings were surrounded by dozens of formations that were designed to trap the enemy. Puff! The dragon vein sword slashed the Emperor of the Fighting Against the Continent in half. On the side, the Sacred Sky Dominator, the Snowdrift Dominator, and the others were dumbfounded. Their eyes were wide open. Everything happened too quickly. Lu Ming had just made 2 moves, and a LV3 Martial Emperor expert, whom they were extremely wary of, was killed in just 1 move. He thought he was dreaming. Kill! Lu Ming swung his sword and slashed a second-layer Martial Emperor into pieces. Run, run! The rest of the cultivators fled in all directions in terror. Kill! Xiao Wan made his move and drew out his demonic saber. A second-layer Martial Emperor expert was slashed in half by the demonic saber. On the other hand, Lu Ming took a step forward and appeared behind the Snowdrift Emperor, slashing at him with his battle sword. The Snowdrift Emperor tried his best to defend himself, but it was useless. The slash shattered everything in its path. Chapter 1373. 5 sovereigns had come, including a LV3 Martial Royal Realm expert, but they had all been killed in an instant. Only the Sacred Sky Emperor was left. The Sacred Sky Emperor felt a chill run down his spine. In his opinion, even if there were experts in the Divine Wilderness continent, a LV2 Martial Royal Realm expert would be the limit. With his peak LV2 Martial Royal Realm cultivation, he could roam the Divine Wilderness unhindered. But now, he realized that the Divine Wilderness continent was a tiger's den. It was a hell on earth. Spare me! The Sacred Sky Emperor begged for mercy. I've said that since you're here to steal my Chaos Origin token, you should be prepared to be killed. Do you really think that the Divine Wilderness continent is your backyard, and that I, Lu Ming, can be easily bullied by you? Lu Ming's cold voice sounded as he appeared behind the Sacred Sky Emperor and slashed down with the dragon vein sword. The Sacred Sky Emperor was filled with regret and hatred. He tried his best to resist, but the result could not be changed. Puff! The Sacred Sky Emperor was killed in the air. The 5 sovereigns who had come to attack were all dead. Lu Ming, give the order to gather all the sovereigns to guard the Dragon Emperor city. I'm afraid there will be more experts coming. Xiao Wan suggested. No. Lu Ming waved his hand and said, passively defending will only be endless. Now we need to take the initiative to attack and scare them. Spread the news to all parts of the Divine Wilderness continent. Tell the experts of the other continents not to resist. Tell them that I, Lu Ming, am at the Fallen Emperor Mountain. You want to be at the Fallen Emperor Mountain? Xiao Wan raised his eyebrows and said, That's right. Fall Emperor Mountain, kill all the sovereigns. Lu Ming said, Do you need our help? Xiao Wan said. He could not help but admire Lu Ming's decisiveness. No need. Senior Xie, you'll guard the Dragon Emperor City. Lu Ming said. After that, Lu Ming stepped out and headed toward the Fallen Emperor Mountain. The Fallen Emperor Mountain was not far from the Dragon Emperor City. It was only 10 million miles away, and was a giant peak that rose into the sky. Legend had it that an sovereign had fallen here a long time ago, which was why it was called the Fallen Emperor Mountain. A short while later, Lu Ming appeared at the top of the Fallen Emperor Mountain. He sat down cross-legged and waited quietly. The Dragon Emperor City also spread the news to every corner of the Divine Wilderness continent, saying that Lu Ming was at the Fallen Emperor Mountain. As time passed, more and more experts from other continents came to the Divine Wilderness. Lu Ming is at the Fallen Emperor Mountain. Let's go to the Fallen Emperor Mountain. I want to be the first to obtain the Primordial Chaos Token. One figure after another headed for the Fallen Emperor Mountain. At the border of the northern plains, the sky rumbled. A huge cross-sea flying ship broke through the wind and waves, appearing on the coastline. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 figures appeared in the cross-sea spaceship. Each of them had a majestic aura. Among the 3 figures, 2 were at the peak of the second-layer Martial Dominator realm, while the one in the middle was even more terrifying, having reached the peak of the third-layer Martial Dominator realm. This person had long green hair and looked to be in his 40s. In the distance, a beam of light flashed as a middle-aged man appeared before the 3 figures. He bowed to the middle-aged man and said, Second Master, I found out that Lu Ming is cultivating in seclusion at the Fallen Emperor Mountain. Oh, got it. The green-haired middle-aged man nodded and sneered. This Lu Ming is really audacious. He even dared to kill the young master of the sea-suppressing marshal's residence. This time, Big Brother sent me here to kill Lu Ming and avenge my 2 nephews. At the same time, I can seize the Primordial Chaos Token. I'll do my best. The others on the side immediately said, All right, let's go. The middle-aged man took the lead and left. At the Fallen Emperor Mountain, Lu Ming sat with his legs crossed and casually scanned his surroundings. Around the Fallen Emperor Mountain, 7 or 8 experts had appeared. They were all experts from different continents, and each of them was a second-layer Martial Dominator realm expert. This force was extremely shocking. However, these people had yet to make their move, not because they were afraid of Lu Ming, but because they were wary of one another. The Primordial Chaos Token is mine. I was the first to arrive. Ridiculous, you're the first to arrive, so it's yours? Bullshit. Are you trying to oppose the Fallen Emperor continent? Voices could be heard as the powerful martial emperors unleashed their auras and stood in the air, facing one another. 2 more experts from the Fallen Emperor continent had arrived, one third-layer Martial Dominator realm, and the other peak second-layer Martial Dominator realm. As expected of one of the top 10 continents in the Godly Ruins continent. As the experts faced one another, none of them dared to make their move. Lu Ming wore a faint smile, but he did not break the balance. Now was not the time to make his move. It would not be too late for him to make his move when more people arrived. As time gradually passed, more martial emperors arrived. Behind them, there were 16 martial emperors. Even the White Feather continent, which was ranked 4th in the Godly Ruins continent group, had sent a few of them. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Suddenly, 4 figures flew toward them from the distance. The one leading them was the blue-haired middle-aged man. The southern sacred palace of the Godly Ruins continent is here for the season-suppressing marshal's residence. Those who have no business here back off. Someone beside the blue-haired middle-aged man yelled. The others were startled. What? Even the southern sacred palace is here. Doesn't the southern sacred palace have a primordial chaos token? Why are they involved? The others blurted out with stern looks. The strength of the Godly Ruins continent was too overwhelming. It had surpassed the strength of the other continents. However, it was impossible for them to give up just like that. The season-suppressing marshal's residents shouldn't try to oppress us. There are so many of us here, we're not afraid of you. That's right. If the season-suppressing marshal were here, we might be a little intimidated. But there's no way we're backing off. The others blurted out. Those who had arrived were the peak experts of the other continents. Even though the blue-haired middle-aged man's cultivation was strong, he was only a peak third-layer martial dominator realm cultivator. His presence was not enough to scare these experts. Humph, how reckless. Are you trying to oppose the season-suppressing marshal's residence and the southern sacred palace? The eyes of the blue-haired middle-aged man flickered coldly as he snapped. However, the others sneered and none of them backed off. Most of the experts from the southern continents of the Godly Ruins continent had gathered here. With so many experts gathered here, why would they be afraid of the season-suppressing marshal's residence? At most, they would hide after obtaining the primordial chaos token. What could the experts of the southern sacred palace do to them? The blue-haired middle-aged man's face darkened. Everyone present was an expert. There were more than 5 third-layer martial dominators. Although none of them were at the peak of the third-layer martial dominator realm, the blue-haired middle-aged man was still wary of them. Finally, it's about time. At this moment, Lu Ming said calmly on the fallen emperor mountain. The emperors immediately looked at Lu Ming. Lu Ming, how dare you kill the people of the season-suppressing marshal's residence? Hand over the primordial chaos token, and come with me to the season-suppressing marshal's residence to receive your punishment. The blue-haired middle-aged man yelled. Hi Tian and hi you, those 2 pieces of trash. If you want to take revenge, then do it. Chapter 1374. You're courting death. The blue-haired middle-aged man shouted with a gloomy face. Everyone, as you can see, Lu Ming has a feud with the Sea Conqueror's mansion. My elder brother's 2 sons died in Lu Ming's hands. The Sea Conqueror's mansion is bent on getting Lu Ming. The blue-haired middle-aged man scanned the crowd. He was worried about the experts from other continents. As for Lu Ming, he did not care about him at all. I have no objection if you want Lu Ming. Just leave the Chaos Origin token behind. That's right. Take him away, and leave the Chaos Origin token behind. The other sovereigns said. Humph. The blue-haired middle-aged man snorted. He wanted to kill Lu Ming, but his main target was the Chaos Origin token. Are you done talking nonsense? Lu Ming stood up and a cold killing intent rose from his body. He said, Do you know why this place is called the Fallen Emperor Mountain? The crowd looked at Lu Ming again. That's because some sovereigns have fallen here. That's why I chose this place to be your burial ground. Lu Ming's cold voice spread in all directions. What? Arrogant. You want to kill us? What a joke. Don't attack. Let me kill him first. Hearing Lu Ming's words, the other sovereigns were enraged. Kill. At this moment, Lu Ming suddenly roared and attacked. He shot up into the sky and rushed toward the sovereigns who were at LV2 Martial Royal Realm. Roar, roar, roar. Dragon roars were heard as the 9 dragon forces burst out. At the same time, the third bloodline appeared, and a force flowed into Lu Ming's body. Then the chaotic domain covered his body. Clang! He slashed out with the dragon vein sword. At this moment, Lu Ming had used all his strength. No one expected that Lu Ming would dare to make a move when he was besieged by more than 20 emperors. Moreover, these sovereigns were all at LV2 Martial Royal Realm and above. How terrifying was this force? Therefore, when Lu Ming made his move, they were subconsciously taken aback. Puff! 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 With a sweep of the dragon vein sword, the 3 emperors of LV2 Martial Royal Realm were cut in half. The sword chi burst out and crushed their spiritual deities. In an instant, 3 people were killed. When Lu Ming attacked, the space between his eyebrows glowed. His second body stepped out and waved his hand. 5 phoenix feather flying swords shot out rapidly, and the cries of phoenixes shook the sky. 5 cries of agony were heard as 5 second-layer martial dominators were penetrated by the phoenix feather flying swords, shattering their spiritual spirits. Lu Ming suddenly launched an attack. His main body and second body attacked at the same time, instantly killing 8 powerhouses. Only then did the others react. Damn it, How dare you launch a surprise attack? How can he be so strong? Go crush him. Angry roars rang out one after another. Some people felt their bodies go cold. If Lu Ming had attacked them just now, what would have happened? In an instant, numerous attacks were launched toward the main body and the second body. Whoosh! Lu Ming's main body moved slightly. Like a flickering light and passing shadow, he disappeared from the spot. Puff! Then, a second-layer martial dominator was cut in half by Lu Ming's sword. The air-frozen bead combined with the wind origin skill is really fast. Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. Lu Ming controlled the air-frozen bead, and a green energy appeared in his body. Then he used the wind origin skill. Lu Ming's speed was extremely fast. Even the emperors could not catch up with his speed. As for the second body, he took a step forward, and the void was filled with formations. He used the formations to move his body and dodge the attacks. At the same time, he controlled the 5 phoenix feather flying swords and killed another second-layer martial dominator. Then he waved his hand, and the million formation illustration appeared. Countless large formations appeared and attacked the emperors. The million formation illustration was most suitable for group battles. Countless large formations, all kinds of offensive, defensive, and trapping enemies, caused the mini-rulers to be in a flurry. With the second body's current strength, even a third-layer martial dominator would be afraid of the million formation illustration. Whoosh! 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 Lu Ming's main body used the wind origin skill, and his body flashed rapidly. Puff! Puff! Blood splattered everywhere. One by one the emperors were killed. Second Master help! A second-layer martial dominator from the Sea Conqueror's mansion shouted. However, the green-haired middle-aged man was focused on by the second body. Countless large formations poured down on him, and 3 of the 5 phoenix feather flying swords stabbed at him. He could barely protect himself, and he did not have the strength to save others. Puff! The emperors of the Sea Conqueror's mansion were easily killed by Lu Ming. Given Lu Ming's current combat ability, with the coordination of his main body and secondary body, killing a second-level martial emperor was as easy as chopping vegetables. Furthermore, most of these people didn't have emperor spirit weapons. In the blink of an eye, there were only 5 martial dominators left. 5 LV3 martial emperor realm experts. The other second-layer martial dominators were all killed. Fall back, fall back. This man is a monster, an Azura, a demon. A few third-layer martial dominators yelled. They were scared out of their wits. Lu Ming was unbelievably strong. There were more than 20 of them. If they joined forces, even a 4th-layer martial dominator would have to retreat. However, almost all of them were killed by Lu Ming. This did not mean that Lu Ming's strength was stronger than a 4th-layer martial dominator. It was that the combination of Lu Ming's main body and his second body was too perfect, especially in a group battle. The second body activated the million formations illustration to trap, disturb, and attack the enemies with a wide range of attacks. No matter how many enemies there were, they could be trapped. Besides, the second body had a powerful attack. Coupled with the coordinated attacks of the main body, the other party's advantage in numbers had yet to be unleashed. Lu Ming's thunderous attacks had already scattered them into pieces. Buzz! At this moment, Lu Ming performed the bloodline merge and turned into the spirit-suppressing steel, suppressing a third-layer martial dominator. Bang! The third-layer martial dominator spat out mouthfuls of blood as half of his body exploded. Following this, the dragon vein sword slashed forward and killed the man. Following this, the spirit-suppressing steel came crashing down once again. The others wanted to escape, but what awaited them was a boundless grand formation. If they wanted to break through the grand formation, they would have to spend some time. But that time was fatal. Bang! The spirit-suppressing steel was like a death steel, covered in a chaotic domain. Ordinary third-layer martial dominators could not resist it at all. They would be severely injured if not killed. Damn it, I'm going to run away, run away. Seeing the other experts being killed by Lu Ming one after another, the blue-haired middle-aged man panicked and tried to escape. However, the second body was staring at him. There was no way he could escape. Whoosh! A formation appeared on the second body's body. A sword intent was fired from the tip of his finger, which almost penetrated the blue-haired middle-aged man's forehead, causing him to break out in cold sweat. Ah! Cries of agony could be heard before they fell silent. The other third-layer martial dominators were all killed by Lu Ming. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.